Would you like to be somebody who knows the true meaning of the pursuit of happiness? Then listen to this entire video where I explain how seeking happiness is really a synonym for the fundamental problem that humans face, and that is also why humans gravitate so much to the concept of seeking happiness. So before we get into this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more about self-development, dating, Jungian psychology, and how to reduce suffering in life altogether. Alright, let's get into it. So, if you ask most people what they want out of life, they tend to say something along the lines of, I seek happiness, I want happiness in my life, I want to be happy. And what does this exactly mean? What does happiness mean? I mean, happiness is defined along the lines of the state of feeling pleasure or contentment. So it's all about positive emotions. The problem, though, is that happiness is an emotion, and emotions are never permanent. So as humans, we can experience a multifaceted list of potential emotions to feel. And as the thing is, this list is relatively long. Like, some people say there are only 10 emotions, but recently scientists have concluded that, or they think there are around 27 emotions humans can feel. So that's quite a lot. So mathematically, the probability of permanently being in one of the 27 different emotions is quite low. And the emotions obviously can change quite frequently because there are 27 of them, and are quite prone also to being influenced by our external circumstances. Like, if you're happy, you feel happy on a Sunday afternoon, you are chilling by your pool, enjoying the weather, the sunshine, and then your boss calls you, telling you that you need to write an email for her. Your happiness is likely to vanish in thin air because you want to chill, but now you suddenly have to do work, which you hoped you wouldn't have to do because your weekend is your time off, and that's quite annoying. That irritated you, and hence your happiness vanishes. Besides, there is also a lot of meaning, I think, in feeling different emotions as a human. It's what makes life rich and beautiful. It gives life flavor and spice. If you were permanently happy, life would be perfect and utopian. And that would be quite boring, and I think humans would try to find a way to create disorder very quickly. Humans thrive off struggle. It's what they're biologically configured to do. And permanent happiness is not really what is best fit for them, I would say. So, before we get into the true meaning of seeking happiness, I want to shortly mention where the aim of seeking happiness might actually have come from. I think it is likely to stem from the concept of the American dream. The American dream perpetuates the idea that everybody has the opportunity to build wealth and take the fate of their lives into their own hands and become successful if they really want it. And I think the term seeking happiness is what people have coupled together with the concept of the American dream. It's like, yeah, you should seek riches in life because that is what will make you happy. Wealth will make you happy. And I think trying to convince somebody that money is a good motivator and a good goal in life is like, it works. But if you can convince them that the wealth will make them happy, then they will be significantly more motivated and determined to become rich. That will really drive them. And this is very interesting because there is a reason why finding happiness is so motivating to humans. And now I will reveal what seeking happiness really means and connect it to this. So, I think the cultural adoption, of the American dream in Western societies as the collective aim of the individual. So, like, the individual always seeks it, like wealth, let's say, has simply reformulated what humans have always strived for. So the American dream has influenced not necessarily what we strive for, although it has, but just how we have formulated the thing that we strive for. Seeking happiness, here it is, here's the punchline. Seeking happiness is a synonym for the absence of suffering, or a reduction in suffering at least, And that is the most fundamental problem that humans face. It's that humans suffer. That's the fundamental problem. You do not get really any deeper than that, I think. And whatever promises humans at least a reduction in suffering, oh boy, people will gravitate to that at an instinctual level. Because, we are primed to survive as humans, and our most primordial configuration as animals is to survive. And suffering threatens our survival. If you suffer excessively, it is likely to lead to your deterioration and death. For example, if you are lonely and depressed, your brain and body climb into a figurative hole, and your risk, like it is scientifically shown that your risk of heart disease and stroke, experiencing a stroke, increases if you are lonely. Hence, your risk of death rises. So thus, I think a reason for why people are so captivated by the prospect of being happy is because instinctually they seek less suffering, because it increases their level of survival, and that leads to an increase in the probability of them propagating their genes. And that is just how humans are primed. But at a more conscious level, suffering really sucks, especially unnecessary suffering. Although, all types of suffering suck, but so there is a distinction. I've talked about this a lot in other videos in where I try to map out the dynamics of suffering. So there are two really types of suffering, or ways you can segregate the suffering. So there is tragedy and there is unnecessary suffering. Tragedy is a type of suffering that is simply inherent in life. You cannot, it's just the fact that we are limited human beings, we will experience suffering. And it's stuff like your dog gets run over, that's very sad, and it could have been prevented, but you cannot prevent all suffering because we are so limited. It's just a fact of our existence. Unnecessary suffering, however, is, I think, a cause of simply very suboptimal behavior and thought patterns that arise. For example, I'll tell an example in a second. So, without struggle, there can be no progress in life, and there is a portion of suffering which is really necessary in order to grow. That's for sure, but there is a portion that is unnecessary. So I would say things like lifelong drug addictions are unnecessary because they make a person permanently suffer. Or any kind of suffering that is never transcended by somebody, it's difficult to argue why its purpose, or why it should exist. So because the utility in suffering is that it gives you the opportunity to learn from it, grow from it, and transcend it. That's why suffering can be useful, why struggling is necessary to grow. But some people never transcend their suffering for the entirety of their lives. And they are likely to despise their own existence. And when they hate their own existence, they are likely to adopt destructive behavior, which makes their own life even worse and the lives of the people around them significantly more painful. And life is just really is like a bad joke to them, and they just don't care anymore. So it is really important, I think, now to just be aware of the true meaning of seeking happiness, what it really entails, because it is very misleading. Despite happiness and the absence of suffering meaning the same thing, depending on how you formulate it, you get different outcomes in life. If you seek happiness, I hypothesize, you are more likely to strive for the emotion of happiness, which is found more in short-term pleasures, and the happiness will be fleeting, it won't be permanent, and you'll realize it was a suboptimal objective to aim at. But if you strive for the absence of suffering, you will take the question of what to strive for in life more seriously, and you understand the dynamic of life better. Of course, it is darker and more painful to realize that life entails a lot of suffering, but I think it is certainly more realistic, and it primes you to fix the problem of suffering at its core. You cannot reduce all suffering because, as I said, a part of life is tragic, and we need to accept that part. But the unnecessary part can be, just reduced, really. And if you understand the root problem of humans, that they suffer, you have a better comprehension of what the source of the problems are that humans face in life. For example, I've made a video on how climate change and trying to fix environmental destruction is an example of how the core of it lies within the human. The core of it does not lie within companies, disposing their waste suboptimally, or people destroying their environment for their own, pleasure, stuff like that. The core of it is not the symptom. The symptom is the destruction of the environment, but the core of it lies within a deep-rooted, volatile, what's a good word? Dissatisfied energy within within humans nowadays, and that is just projected. It is released onto their environment. I would say it like that. So in conclusion, seeking happiness is really seeking the absence of suffering, and we do this because suffering is the most fundamental problem we face in life. And as animals that want to survive, we instinctually try to avoid suffering because it threatens our survival, because it can make us deteriorate and die earlier. And I think it's very important to be aware of that. Seeking happiness is firstly a misleading concept, because happiness is a temporary emotion and will never be there permanently. And it also, I think, stems more from, I'm not sure, but yes, it's better to strive for something that will actually bring you meaning in life, and that is not happiness. And if you understand the core root of the problem that humans suffer, you have I think you have a more realistic and accurate outlook on life and how to solve the problems humans face in general. So remember, seeking happiness is really, in my eyes, the absence of suffering, seeking a reduction in suffering. Please leave a comment below whether you agree with this or actually disagree, that happiness is really, in the human mind, one thinks it's happiness, but it's actually what we're striving for is less pain in our lives, less negative emotions. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more about self-development, dating, Jungian psychology, and how to reduce suffering in life altogether. Thank you for listening.